The views and opinions on this podcast are those of the hosts and producers and are not those of Apple or any authorized service provider. Information provided is purely for entertainment purposes only. For more information about products and services discussed in this program, we invite you to visit a corporate Apple store or an approved, certified Apple service and sales center.
Today we celebrate the first.
Hello, I'm a Mac.
You're stealing from us!
Don't Sculley Around.
The Apple podcast that brings you information from both sides of the counter.
Anyway, your turn, seeing as you're a bit eager, and I'm sorry I just blathered on for a while.
From both the customer and the sales and service provider's point of view.
You want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world?
Because we don't scully around.
What can I say? I hired the wrong guy.
And welcome back to Don't Scully Around, your Apple podcast hosted by two Apple authorized technicians, myself, Chris, and Caitlyn Williams, my wife. And we're here to talk about the recent Apple event held this past Tuesday. It was live from the Steve Jobs Theater,
Well,
but
not live.
But it was.
But it wasn't.
But it was.
But it wasn't.
For the people at the Steve Jobs Theater, they got to see the film, and basically Tim Cook walked out and said, "Good morning, everyone. Here's the film."
It's live because a person introduced it.
We watched a post video sort of talking about how, you know, when the film was being played, everyone was cheering and we're really excited about the new stuff that was unveiled. And
Too bad we couldn't see that.
yeah, we kind of miss the old days of a live keynote, but Apple really likes making these really cool videos that they've been making all through COVID. So I
I mean,
guess
they're cool videos, but like, why can't you just, I guess, mix them so that you could, you know what? Now they've got that cool feature on the phone where they could sit there and they could have the recording in front of you and you could see the person's reaction. That's the whole point. Sorry, just some peeks there.
Okay, so on September 9th, Apple announced some new devices. Sorry, tech wannabe pundits out there, there is no folding iPhone, and we hope there never will be. But from watching Tim Cook and the manager of Owens Corning talking on a talk show earlier in the week, it was interesting to sort of just talk about, you know, what they can do and the polymers involved and just creating the new, what are they calling it now? The protective shield?
The Ceramic Shield 2.
The Ceramic Shield 2. So first, before we talk about the new communications devices, I'm sure everyone wants to know, are we getting new Apple Watches? Has your interest been piqued by what you saw at the keynote about what's going into the new Apple Watch?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Did I need to be more subtle on that? I mean, also, our Apple Watches are our Apple Watch Series 6. We have had them since 6 months since they were announced. And so they're getting up there in age, so the battery isn't so great. But we were, as we discussed previously, debating on getting it done. But with the battery, when you replace an Apple Watch, if you send an Apple Watch in for a battery replacement, they're replacing your whole watch, which is great because you get it at a nice discounted price. But with the Massimo lawsuit, they weren't able to send you back an Apple Watch that has the blood oxygen sensor activated in it, which was something that just felt like we were missing out on and that we weren't getting the same thing that we purchased. So now that they have the hypertension built into that, it's very intriguing. Granted, that is part of a software update, but I guess if we're going to replace our Apple Watches, we might as well replace it with the latest one.
I agree. And I thought it was interesting. If I hadn't had my Apple Watch on me, I would have died video.
There was no bear.
But they made sure to stick one in there where someone said, if it wasn't for the blood oxygen sensor on my Apple Watch, I wouldn't have known that my blood oxygen was below like 80% or something like that, and I would have been in really big trouble.
And it saved my life.
So
yeah, I mean, it was definitely still the Dear Mr. Cook.
Dear Mr. Cook. Also, Apple unveiled Series 3 of the AirPods Pro now having a universal translator built into them, which sounds interesting.
I'm sorry, my first thought was TARDIS, universal translator, that we're getting to that stage of life, or maybe something Star Trek-y, and I was like, this is cool. Plus, they also redesigned them so that they're supposed to fit in your ears better, which is interesting, and I liked that they mixed the two, I guess you could call it technologies for ear tips, to be both foam and silicone, or not foam, we'll go with.
And 5 different sizes now.
Yeah, and they're expanding that, I feel like, every version that they have. So I'm really curious about those, but I think it'll be a while before those.
And we were discussing about this too, the idea of incorporating some of the fitness features into the AirPods Pro.
They already did that in the Beats.
Okay. So is this something that you could not have your Apple Watch, or were you were kind of suggesting that maybe this is for the person that doesn't think they need the Apple Watch, but they still want some of that accelerometer stuff for the health app?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I mean, I do enjoy going for a walk where I have my Apple Watch and my AirPods on. I guess it gives you a little bit more accurate readings because it's getting from 2 different places. But there are some people that just use, I think it's kind of Apple's just going, you know what? People are using the AirPods Pro for exercise. Screw it. We're going to jump into this now and fully support it. And there are some people who go, I don't want an Apple Watch. I just want to be able to keep track of my heart rate while I'm doing my exercise, which is something you can now do with the AirPods Pro 3. So it's interesting. I think interesting, but then again, we are a little bit embracing the Apple ecosystem in our house. So we have the everything stuff thing.
Right.
So it makes it harder. That part's not as appealing to us. It's just kind of interesting, I think. I think if you're somebody who doesn't want the Apple Watch, doesn't see the need for the Apple Watch, but you kind of like some of the features of the Apple Watch for the health benefits, it's kind of neat that you can just shove it in your ear when you want to use it.
Yeah, I don't quite understand what the complaint was about wearing your Apple Watch can be hard if you're doing any kind of weightlifting. I don't see that it gets in the way. So,
well, as nice as I can put it, you're not fat enough. As a fat person, trying to do something like, I was actually thinking sometimes when I try to do push-ups, if you can call it doing push-ups, my wrist, because it goes so tightly on here, it'll accidentally hit buttons on my watch. It actually kind of hurts my wrist to do it. Lifting the weights up in the air, some people don't like the feeling of the sweat around it. I mean, honestly, until we got the solo bands that we have now, I can wear my watch longer now since I went to this woven solo band. It doesn't get as sweaty. It doesn't feel as uncomfortable. So there are some, it's a lot of feeling than more than anything else.
And it's nice to have a band that's a little bit more washable.
Yeah, there's that. And then also just going back to the exercise side of things, I mean, I could see it with the weightlifting that it kind of restricts your wrist movement on one hand. And then sometimes if you have it too loose, it can slide and then go, I can't detect if you're alive. Are you alive? Knock, knock, knock. Well, that'll be an opening of a show soon.
But yeah, so let's talk about the big unveil. The the new iPhone 17 is it's an incremental update. Nothing really special about it except maybe the battery life.
Okay. They really took the pros and they shoved it into the iPhone 17. It now has that ProMotion display or the 120 hertz. Which I, as a person who does not actually think, I don't know if we have it or not. I can definitely feel a difference when I'm out at work between the iPad Air and the iPad Pro. The iPad Pro has that fancy display. The iPad Air does not. You can feel the difference when you're using it. The device feels a lot more snappy, I think is a good way of putting it. So it gains that. It also gets the ceramic shield, which is brand new to the whole entire line. So it's not like you're still getting, last year's model. It also gets the A19, not the A19 Pro, but the A19 chip, which is, again, a new chip. So they're not just going, here's the old stuff, we'll shove it into this. So you are getting that. So it's not like it's a terrible thing. It's got some really good video playback time. And you get that cool new center stage. I actually think their presentation was really nice because they really did start, here's the bottom, and look how cool the bottom is. Wait until we get to the top. That center stage camera is weird cool, and at least they finally updated the megapixels for the front-facing camera. And you still get 2 cameras on that phone, which is better than the Air.
That's true.
So there's definitely some neat options with that, as well as they've made it so it can charge faster as well, or with the expedited charging can be faster. So that's definitely interesting, and I think what it is, we're just used to going, ooh, I want the cool new shiny one, and this is the cool new shiny one, but not in the same way.
We'll talk about this after the break, but now the iPhone 17 doesn't have the new camera bump.
No, the iPhone 17 has the old camera bump, I guess you could call it. And it still has
what are they calling it now? What is that part of the phone being called now?
Isn't that the plateau?
The plateau, yes.
I mean, I guess that's very Apple, but I kind of like it. I mean, we do have the dynamic island, and now we have the plateau.
Yes.
The camera plateau.
Yes.
There's a light on it.
Will Apple's technology gains ever plateau? We will find out when we come back on Don't Sculley Around. Looking for a blast from the past? Head to the Vinyl Loft in Queechee, Vermont. They've got collectible toys, comic books, CDs, cassettes, VHS tapes, video games going all the way back to the Atari 2600, and of course, vinyl records. When you step inside their booth at the Vermont Antique Mall, you'll feel like you've walked into your childhood bedroom. Visit their 3 booths at the Vermont Antique Mall in Queechee, Vermont. Ask at the desk for dealer 680, the Vinyl Loft. Relive it, collect it, love it.
You can't just like it, you have to love it.
And we're back on Don't Sculley Around talking about the Apple event. And now the big unveil, the new iPhone Air. And there are people saying that it's interesting that it doesn't have a number. So this could be a whole new line. This could just be a phone that comes out.
That's just a one-off.
That's a one-off. We don't know, but...
Also interesting that it kept the titanium frame and all the other ones went to the...
solid aluminium.
Anyway, so... It's also interesting that it has the largest screens of all of them, not including the Max. The Max screen is still the largest. But the iPhone Air is a 6.5-inch screen, and the 16 and the 17 Pro are 6.3. So I guess if you want the second largest screen, you have to go for the smallest one.
Oh, the thinnest one?
Thinnest one.
The thinnest one.
The lightest one.
The lightest one.
Which it still has the titanium frame, so they're not losing that. They were actually saying in that interview that we were watching, they kept the titanium frame because they didn't want another bend gate. They didn't officially say that, but that's pretty much what they said. Mm-hmm. And then they handed the phone over going, here, you bend it. And they really tried.
They really did.
These were not weak guys from what I could tell. So it is interesting. One of the big things that everybody's pointing out is that they don't really say how long the battery life is. They're just saying all day, whatever your day is apparently is the all day version, but who knows whose day they measured that by. But they do tell you about the battery life with the special MagSafe battery growth to go onto your thin phone that makes it then the same size as a regular phone. But, you know, who would notice that?
Yeah, this MagSafe adapter that is only for the iPhone Air, which is kind of making people like Snazzy Lab scratch their head and say,
And then it only has one camera lens, which I think is going to take a lot of people a little bit of why? Because it feels like we're taking a step back by doing that. I mean, other phones out there are just a single phone in that same, we'll go with similar design, even though they're pretty darn close. I think it's like the Google One, the Pixel One has a very similar design. But this is brand new. But this also gets that really awesome screen. They've changed a lot of the battery technology, and it doesn't, it's only one camera, so it doesn't do as much zoom. It's got the least, I guess it's got the least powerful camera of the bunch. It also has a slower charging port. From everything that we've been seeing, it's USB 2 instead of USB 3, which means that it can charge on up to 20 watts on a 30-watt adapter or higher, unlike even the 17, which can do 25. I know that's not much, but basically long and short of that is it charges slower. It still has MagSafe, it still has all those other things. The other part that I loved is while we were watching this, one of my coworkers texted me going, that looks like the most annoying phone ever to repair. I haven't seen the Apple training videos, but I think we're going to need some popcorn.
Yeah, these are going to be some fun Apple training videos to watch when these do come out. But what's interesting is they've found a way to cram as much battery in there. And it's also interesting that they're encasing the battery in some sort of metal casing to sort of protect the battery.
I can't wait to electrocute a battery.
It's also supposed to help with thermals. So that ought to be interesting. And of course, there was talk about the iPhone Air is getting the same A19 Pro chip as the Pro phone. It's got to be somewhat throttled down to adjust to allow for the size and the ventilation inside that phone. What's
interesting is that they were saying in the Apple in the after interview, I guess you could call it, that it's because it's so thin that the ventilation is different, so they didn't need to worry about putting in a special ventilation shaft thingy like they did in the Pros. It also doesn't have as large a battery, though it's still a pretty decent battery. So that's kind of interesting. I'm also...
And a single speaker.
Yeah, and I mean, it's reduced.
Yeah.
They weren't trying to hide that. I mean, there were some things that felt like they were trying to hide, but it wasn't that.
But probably the most interesting thing, because when we were looking at the preliminary designs of the iPhone 17 Pro that were, being put out there, was the plateau. What is this? And we found out with the iPhone Air and the 17 Pro that all the electronics of the phone, the logic board, the antenna, the guts of the phone,
what makes it go,
have been miniaturized enough, especially with Apple developing their own chips, which we'll talk about with the iPhone 17 Pro, is they've been able to pack everything into that plateau.
Yeah.
That makes the phone work, which is going to be...
It's crazy just to think about. Like, how is that possible?
And it could be interesting.
And yet we're going to be playing with these.
And it could be interesting for repairability. How easzy or hard it's going to be to, say, replace screens or replace the battery.
Maybe we'll be allowed to replace a logic board someday.
Maybe.
Or a USB-C port. I'm kind of curious because also if you put all the guts of the phone up there, wouldn't that also get hot? But, it's got the... I don't know. I'll be very curious. My parents actually both bought an iPhone Air, which is so weird. Like, I'm the chronic upgrader in the family, and yet my dad is on a 16 Pro. Like, what? But yet I'm still on a 14 Pro. See, we need watches and phones.
Okay.
That's going to happen.
We'll see. Moving on to the big kahuna of the line, the
Cosmic Orange.
The iPhone 17 Pro.
And Pro Max.
And Pro Max, but iPhone 17. They, of course, showed off that they shot the keynote video with the iPhone 17 Pro. I
found that interesting because they said that they usually shoot it with an iPhone, but they usually do it with the previous generation because the other ones aren't working yet. So that was really interesting to hear that this one is just so good it's already out. That
fantastic shot of just these array of iPhones just all lined up to do like this incredible like 360 turning pan shot. That was
But I will say this is really indestructible. Yeah, let's just take a phone and throw it through already broken glass. That's a really good test. It's not a single one of those tests was a drop test at all. It was just, look, we put it on this pole and we swung it through things. Which, I mean, yeah, but most people are worried more about dropping it than they are about, I'm going to throw this through a glass wall. Yeah. Like, how many glass windows are you throwing your iPhone through these days? So the iPhone 17 Pro and the iPhone 17 Pro Max come in 3 colors. It comes in the silver, which I guess it's a slightly different silver than they've been doing, but again, it's one you have to see. They also did it in a deep blue, and they made that cosmic orange, which honestly... it's a tough decision, and I don't like orange. So, I mean, honestly, for me, if I were to get one, hint, it would be the deep blue. I actually like the blue really well. Really nice blue, because it's kind of like the midnight blue without being the midnight blue. I guess we just need to have all the blues. But the battery life on these guys are just wow. I mean, the iPhone 17 Pro, which was the smaller of the 2 Pros, now has the same battery life as the current 16 Pro Max, the bigger one that has more space. And the 17 Pro Max almost has 40 hours of video playback time. 2 days worth of time? Like, who needs that? You're right, I'm going to be on a plane for over 48 hours, and darn it, it's not going to make it the whole way. But that's just cool, doing all of that. It's also really interesting. The new design is both cool and weird. The charging, it's the fastest charger of all of them. They all have USB 3.0, but then again, for downloading files or doing things where you're uploading through the port, the faster you get, the better it is. Also, these all come in 256 instead of 128, thank God. But then again, I mean, I look at a lot of people's phones, and the 128 was still a decent fit. We're going to be looking at the 256 ourselves, because we're only using about half of that right now.
Through my iPhone 14 Pro, I paid the extra to give a terabyte of storage because they thought, oh, maybe we'll be shooting more video with it, and it really hasn't been the case.
The iPhone 17 Pro is the largest. It has a 6.9, almost 7-inch display. That's wow. And this all gets all the same stuff that the iPhone Air and the iPhone 17 have, so you still get the super amazing ceramic shield on front and back. Chris did point out a really interesting thing is that in the design of the newer Pros, not the Airs, they've actually moved the Apple down, so it's a little bit more symmetrical. now the MagSafe puck thing, circle thing, doesn't line up with the Apple perfectly centered. So it's kind of like it's like an error, but you get to look at it on the back of your phone when you're doing that. Then again, how many of us are looking at that?
But the other thing that's really interesting is what Apple has developed. The idea that they now have their own networking Wi-Fi chip as well as their own cellular chip.
Yeah, and that's, I believe, only in the iPhone Air. I don't believe it's in the iPhone.
I think it's in both. I thought the 17 was getting that. The Pros.
I know that the Air was getting the new N1 chip, which is all the networking except the cellular, and then it was getting the C1 X or C1 times. I don't know what they're calling it. It looks like it's getting the same stuff, so I think you're right. Yeah, it is. It's getting this Apple's second generation ultra wideband chip and the thread networking. I would assume that they're using the same thing. They're just making it very specific. Sorry. The other thing I found entertaining, and I think they presented this in the Pros, is apparently the SIM card slot that is still taking up space in everybody's phone as of the phones that we have today, that holds 2 whole hours of battery life. How big is a SIM card? It's not that big. Like, it fits on my finger. My finger holds 2 hours of battery life?
It's amazing.
Who knew? I remember opening up the first iPhone 14, one of the models then, and seeing the stupid little spot where the SIM card tray would be, that's just filled. They just put a thingy in there to fill it up. And I always thought that was kind of stupid, but apparently they agreed. And that was mainly because iPhones overseas still had SIM cards, or still have SIM cards in them, because the other countries hadn't quite embraced that at that point, or hadn't gotten the infrastructure in, and apparently now they have. So the iPhone Air is only going to be available as an eSIM, versus the iPhone 17 Pro and 17 Max. I believe that those guys still can have a physical SIM card slot if you're not in the US. If you're in the US, you get eSIM. eSIM or eSIM or eSIM. eSIM's an interesting thing. I know for my phone, my phone was the first time I've ever had an eSIM. And my eSIM actually got corrupted, which I didn't think that was a thing, but I guess it kind of makes sense because even SIM cards could go bad. And then I had to go back to the cellular provider after doing a ton of troubleshooting and thinking I was crazy. And then they just replaced my eSIM, and I haven't had an issue since then. I will say it's nice and fast, and I don't have to worry about paying them to do this, because with the SIM cards, if you didn't go to a branch cellular provider that was owned by whoever your cellular provider was, if you're going to a franchisee, it was up to that franchisee whether or not they were going to charge you for the SIM cards, because they had to pay for the SIM cards.
That makes sense.
Now with eSIM, it doesn't seem to be an issue. But then again, I haven't really had to go back. The other big thing, and I'm not a person who travels overseas often, I think at all. I think the last time I was 12, the eSIM switch out, like you can do that. I was on a bus to go to a business trip within the U.S., and the other person who happened to be sitting next to me, her husband was like, "Oh, can I borrow your phone for a second?" And then poked a whole bunch of buttons on the phone and goes, "Okay, now we're all set." So when we land in, I think they were going to like the Bahamas, they were going to have cell service. And it's like, that's something we didn't even think about the last time I went to Europe. A, I don't think I had a cell phone. And B, you just sit there, you go in the app and ask for a SIM card an eSIM that'll work overseas, and you can even tell it when to activate. It's really neat that it does that instead of you just going, for me, the closest I'm going to get to that is the Canadian border. Yeah,
and that happened to me. I was visiting a friend who lives extremely up north in the northern part of Vermont. I was maybe, 10 miles from the border. I was getting near to his house, and my phone must have pinged off of a Canadian cell tower. And it said, "Welcome to Canada. Would you like to purchase so much data?" And I'm like, "I'm not in Canada."
But thanks. No. We actually have some friends that are in Canada, just the complete opposite space from where we are, that I'd love to go and visit. And it's something I've actually thought about is doing that. But then again, it's how much do I need to contact somebody while I'm in Canada? Like, how long am I staying? If I'm only staying for a couple of hours or a day, I can just use their Wi-Fi and I'm fine. If I'm staying there for like a week or something like that, yeah, that's a different story. I honestly kind of want to travel to Canada just to experience this, but we got to see how that all shakes out. And don't forget about dual capture, just to get back on an actual.
Oh, yes, dual capture, yes.
That is, I think it's super duper cool and flashy, But I'm also sitting here going, when would I use it? I mean, I guess if I'm watching a group or something like that, and then I could, like if I was watching a band and I wanted to record my reaction for like somebody who can't be there, I'm not quite sure who it's for. I do want to play with it because I'm weird and I can, but I'm curious about that one. Like, it looked so cool, and I was so excited when it came out, and then I'm like, when would I ever use it? So I don't know. We'll figure that one out at some point. So that would be most of the Apple announcement. I don't think there was too much more from there other than don't forget your Apple Watch because otherwise you'll die.
That's true.
I mean, it was cool when I was in my car accident and it was going off like crazy. You really have to be conscious and awake when the crash detection goes off. You have to sit there and say no, and then slide a button on your watch to say no, and then you have to know to hit another button on the watch. This was all through the watch because my phone was in the car because I was freaking out. And you had to hit another button, otherwise it's going to call 911. I almost got there twice. And honestly, think about it now, I probably should have let it go. But especially where our technology is these days, and it did kind of feel like Apple had plateaued with the design style because they haven't really made a major change, and it didn't seem like they were going to anytime soon. It is interesting that I read an article somewhere, don't know which one it is, so that's super useful. They are trying to get the iPhone to being just a sheet of glass in your hand. And this is a step closer to that, because that's what Steve Jobs envisioned. I really wish I remember where I read that from, but it was cool.
So to leave things off, we are probably going to be getting new Apple Watches.
Please. I want a new Apple Watch.
iPhones are another matter, but
if I get them for free, it'll be blue and pretty. We'll go off the air with me begging you for a phone.
But join us on the next edition of Don't Sculley Around, where we will be talking about how to prep your computer for the new in Apple devices for the new Apple operating systems, which
that's coming out tomorrow.
That all get released tomorrow. So as we're recording this. So when we come back, we'll talk to you about how to prepare your device for an upgrade and
how you'll want to lick the operating system. I mean, that's the wrong one.
But we'll talk again real soon on Don't Sculley Around.